I really lived that sort of John Hughes life in the sense that there was the train tracks and there were the privileged people, and then I was on the other side of the train tracks.
Oh, so you were John Cryer. Okay, I just
I
wanted to
was
make sure.
exactly John Cryer, 100%. In fact, when I met my wife, she had mentioned, she goes, I like that you're Ducky, really. And
I am with Brian Shortall, who you've been an actor, writer for TV uh, for years, and we have a mutual friend. But you're about to publish when we're having this conversation. You're about to release your first book. We'll call it novella. I don't know, satirical thing called Victor versus Video Games. So let's just give me that pitch for Victor versus Video Games, so that
sure,
somebody watching this will buy it.
sure. Well, I'll tell you, just it started with me wanting to. I grew up in Chicago, so I grew up sort of in the middle of a real life John Hughes movie. I was literally from the suburbs of Chicago in the '80s, where I saw a lot of there was just wonderful time to be alive as far as pop culture and movies and video games, obviously in the title. And I really lived that sort of John Hughes life in the sense that there was the train tracks and there were the privileged people, and then I was on the other side of the train tracks.
Oh, so you were John Cryer. Okay, I just
I
wanted to
was
make sure.
exactly John Cryer, 100%. In fact, when I met my wife, she had mentioned, she goes, I like that you're Ducky, really. And but I had experienced that sort of, I had a taste of that other side of the tracks and those types of people growing up. And I was always amazed by just their sheer confidence and privilege, and everything sort of just worked out for them. And so when it came time to write this book, I thought, well, the funniest thing to me would be to sort of embody that type of person that I certainly wasn't, but found a lot of humor in everything sort of coming easy to them. So the idea sort of was born out of that sort of culture of the '80s and pop culture, and what kind of character could appear in that sort of environment, sort of in a John Hughesian way of. And so I came up with Victor, who's named Victor Best, and basically the book is about him. He has an acute disorder called awesomeness. That sort of is a manifestation of all the coolness that we embody and think of with the '80s, of like shade tipping, and if he puts on a polo shirt, his collar pops right away. It's all part of this. He can't help it. He just has this sort of ailment, and he gets picked to be a juror for the trial of the century. It's a fictional trial of the century. And so this is a book about, told through the eyes of this person with this fictitious uh, um, ailment, as I said, condition, where he's just always awesome. He attracts people's attention. He's the life of the party. And so he ends up upending this trial of the century. And so he sort of causes chaos in this very public media blitz, kind of akin to like the Johnny. We seem to have one every year. Like we have the Johnny Depp trial. We of course have the classics like OJ and Robert Blank. There's always a case that just takes over the culture, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to center it around that.
And is that video game censorship? I'm just trying to get a handle.
Yes, well, the tone, as was mentioned, is very absurd. So the actual case is the United States versus the video game industry. And one young video gamer has played so many hours of video games that he's actually lost his thumbs from playing all of them. So they're suing the video game industry, and that is sort of the centerpiece of this fictitious trial of the century. It becomes a huge case about this young man losing his thumbs, and then of course it's all told, like I said, through the eyes of this juror who sort of affects and upends things. So very silly, very heightened world. But that's the sort of stuff I thought would be good to just pack as much jokes and bits into as possible.
Sure. And you've obviously you've done improv, so how much of that influences your writing style as you're going through? How many yes ands to get to 200 pages?
That's a good question. I think a lot, actually. I actually think improv affected it a lot because, it's well known now, but improv is all about yes and. It's all about agreeing to a reality, as absurd as it might be, whether, you could have a deli counter on Mars in an improv scene, and everyone just accepts it as, completely normal. So the idea that I could just be as silly as possible without any guardrails or worries, I guess, about, well, is this going to make sense, or is it too silly? Or none of that was really even, none of that even crossed my mind, to be quite honest, because I knew that, at least for me, I could make it entertaining in my eyes, make me laugh if I just went for it and sort of yes-anded the whole experience.
Excellent. We before we started recording, you mentioned why you've gone to self-publishing. So this is only available on Amazon
Correct.
for
Yeah.
now.
For
For
now.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but it's kind of interesting that you said you took this out, or your manager took this out, and publishers were like, well, we don't know how to sell this. And to me, that's almost like the great selling point. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Oh, no, I think you're dead on. Well, I feel like that has always attracted me. The type of comedy that you can't quite classify is always more interesting. And maybe it's just because I've studied comedy for so long. I've always loved comedy. So if there's always something that people don't quite know how to receive, I'm usually a little more interested in it. If it's something straight down the middle, and not that there's anything wrong with that kind of comedy either. I like it, but if it's comedy that kind of hits your ear in an odd way, and you have to sort of understand the absurdity or silliness of it, I find that kind of fun.
Excellent. And let's talk about your improv background a little bit, because I don't know if it was shared, if I shared accurately. I, since 1989, have been an improviser as well,
Awesome.
but Northern California,
Okay.
and now nothing here in SoCal. So you've got, since Chicago, so you must have been Second City
Yes.
or Improv Olympic.
Both. You're dead on. Very good.
What
Yeah.
attracted you to improv? Once you got out of being in a John Hughes movie, and your vest became one color. Uh,
Yeah. Good. I honestly, I mean, not to speak too nostalgic about it, but like, as soon as I walked into Second City, I was like, oh, okay, this is where I want to be. Just because it was very obvious to me, having grown up. I mean, I grew up, my parents made the huge mistake of giving me a television in my room as a kid. So every night was Letterman during the week, Saturday Night Live on Saturdays, no exceptions. And I grew up imbibing that. And so when you take that much, absurd comedy in terms of Letterman and sketch comedy in terms of Saturday Night Live, you walk into Second City and you're like, oh, this is my home. I'm here now. And that's kind of how I felt. I didn't have any doubt, sort of if I wanted to do it after I saw what was available.
yeah, in the back of your head now, because you've written television and probably film scripts. I just don't, I'm not familiar yet.
Mhm.
Yet, I stress that.
Yes, yeah.
Do you see this becoming Victor versus Video Games becoming a film?
I think honestly, yeah. I mean, I think it could, and I only say that again because I've spent so much time in that world writing it, and it's just a natural thing for me to be like, oh, I wonder if that were 90 pages, and how would I condense all that? Or conversely, what if that were 8 episodes of a season? I could see that as well, and the nice part about creating something, I think, without anybody sort of looking over your shoulder is I found the possibilities become endless, and I had sort of, my reps say, well, it's IP and this and that. We can do that. And maybe. But if it doesn't work in my head first, then there's no point in pursuing that. But in this case, I was like, yeah, it's an easy thing, especially with something so agreeable to, the world is just agreeable to any type of happening because it's a very heightened reality. And so, yeah, it could definitely be a longer thing. It just gives you, it's like saying, can you do another improv show tonight? It's like, oh yeah, sure. I can put on another one of those, Yeah. I think part of though, why we do that is why I do that, why I keep creating is because there is sort of that feeling of, why don't we just put on the show, And there's,
And writing, you only have to answer to yourself. So do you think you
yeah.
have another one of these in you?
Well, now that I know the landscape, I can finally say I do. There were there,
Good to
there was
figure
a
that out
long,
after it's all done. Yeah.
yes, when you're in the middle of
Yeah.
it, even after you finish, there's this come down period of like, I don't think I could do that. Yeah, I mean, just because of the creating is one part, but we talked a little bit about before we rolled too, of like then going into like, oh, now I got to go sell it. Now I got to go dance. Now I got to go,
Mhm.
be the marketer for this. I don't know that area at all, and so I purely just know how to like create the product. So, but now that I've gone through this and figured out, the literal logistics of, oh, here's how the cover should look, and this, all the art and all the, um, obviously going through it being edited and all of that, now I can finally turn the corner and be like, yeah, I think I could do it again, especially this day and age where they kind of make it easy, even though you're not going to sell 10 million of these most likely, but at least you can make your product. So I
You can
like it.
say I made that. All right. Well,
Yeah.
excellent. So this comes out on July 22nd,
Yes.
Tuesday, July 22nd. And on the Fanboy Planet site page for this, I will, of course, have a link so people can purchase it. The only reason
Awesome.
I'm not yet is because I don't want it to arrive while I'm at Comic Con. And then you know who has to pick it up from my front porch?
Yeah.
The guy next door
Yes.
who
I do know
introduced us.
him.
So
Yeah,
So,
man.
please, people, absolutely. It is Victor versus video games. It's almost like Ready Player One without the science fiction, in
Yeah.
terms of.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, there's an element to that. There's a deep love for video games and gaming culture and pop culture. I mean, you had mentioned that this came out right before Comic Con before I even knew that because I was so busy with my head and all this that I was like, oh, that's right, that's a perfect pairing. But it is definitely a an homage to fandom and
yeah.
to just and to comedy. I hope it makes me laugh, and so that's really all that I
Well,
care about.
I appreciate that I get reminded from time to time that not everybody has built their entire year calendar around San Diego. So,
You get to remind, oh, there's a world out
there's a
there.
world people don't know.
Yeah.
So, very cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and
I
I hope we'll talk
appreciate it.
again.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet video content. Be sure to visit the Fanboy Planet website for other features and episodes of the Fanboy Planet podcast. And remember, use your powers for good.